Caldwell. That might help. We're very pleased to be co-sponsoring this with the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce. Over the past several decades, the League of Women Voters of Idaho have hosted nonpartisan forums to allow candidates to share their experience and ideas related to the positions they are seeking. The League is the most experienced organization in the state in this field and is pleased to be here this evening. These are not debates. They are conversations between the candidates and the audience. Each of you have received a card on your chair and should have a pen, and as the candidates are giving their introductions, if you'd like to think about a question you might have, please fill that out, and we have Rob and Sarah who will, if you'll hold up your card, they'll be the ones who actually will be collecting those cards and giving them to our moderator, Travis. Each candidate will offer a short opening statement introducing themselves, their reasons for running, and their aspirations for this role. After that, questions from the audience will be taken, and you can direct your questions either to all candidates or one candidate in particular. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the question. And have we decided 1.5 minutes for an introduction? 1.5 minutes for an introduction. So speed talk, please. We have gathered a few questions before this event that will begin our question-answer period. At the end of the forum, if time permits, we will have a closing. We'll go till 7:30, and then from 7:30 to 8, we have some uncontested races and candidates here who would like to introduce themselves. I'm pleased to turn the time over now to our moderator after I mention a couple of housekeeping things. You all know where the bathrooms are? This is being live streamed on YouTube. Thank you very much to the city. And so if you have any difficulties with that, you may want to excuse yourself, but the YouTube is just going to be here in the panel. And there is also a waiver, a notice of filming and photography. Sarah will be taking still photographs, and so this is a waiver accepting that you will, that photography may be occurring. And now to turn it over to Travis Palmer, the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce. I am going to be the strict timekeeper. Thank you all very much for coming. Travis.
So, Jean, the hardest job you're going to have is actually going to be keeping me on time, probably not the candidates, because I tend to go a little long. But first of all, I want to thank each and every candidate, both up here as well as in the crowd, for coming tonight. There are a ton of people running for various races that the folks in Canyon County and Caldwell will get a chance to vote for, both in the primary and then again in November. And you're being pulled in a million directions right now. There's at least 3, if not 4 events tonight, all happening simultaneously, so I really appreciate everybody being here. What we're going to do is try to ask as many questions as we can of all of you so that the folks both tuning in online and here tonight can get as good of a feel for who they'd like to vote for in the different positions. And then at 7:30, we're going to let you all go to the next thing. And then for the other folks that are here in the room running for other races, one promise I made to everybody was that if you're running for an office and you'll be on a ballot in May, we will at least let you introduce yourself and be recognized, and we'll see what time and audience participation allows from after 7:30 and probably go till 8. So we're going to squeeze as much good information in this as we possibly can tonight. So again, thank you. I want to recognize again the League of Women Voters for partnering with us on this event. My name is Travis. I'm the director of the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce, and we believe strongly in education as well as advocacy. And while the Chamber is a nonpartisan organization, we don't endorse candidates. We will only occasionally weigh in on certain issues as it relates to business and being, a business-friendly environment in Caldwell. We believe in advocating for a better educated community, both when it comes to candidates as well as issues. So we are reforming a committee that had kind of gone defunct for a while called the Government Affairs Committee. If you like this type of thing and you want to be involved in the Government Affairs Committee through the Chamber, please come talk to myself or Lindy or one of the other folks from the Chamber in the room, Sarah Joy or Rob Graham or Thad. They are all attached to the Chamber in various forms, and don't be afraid to ask them questions about how to get more involved. I also want to recognize we also have at least 3 members of our City Council here, so I appreciate the folks from our City Council here to participate. We also have members of the Urban Renewal District. Some of them are wearing 2 hats simultaneously, but I appreciate all the participation from our elected officials. Are there any other elected folks in the room that I haven't yet acknowledged, because I want to make sure we acknowledge that you're here and thank you for it. But oh, yes, sir. I don't recognize your face because I haven't got to meet you yet, but oh yes, that's right, Senator Strickle. Okay, and you'll get a chance to, because you're rerunning on the ticket again, so you'll get a chance to chat more later. I also wanted to say thank you to the city. They at the very last second were able to give us some city staff. So Eddie, thank you for being here to make sure that this could be live streamed and that the mics work and all that good stuff. Okay, without further ado, I think we need to jump into it. So I stole my question. Well, while I'm finding my question sheet that somewhere went away somewhere, we're going to jump right into the first question. So thank you. As Jean mentioned, you'll have a minute and a half each to introduce yourself, a little bit of personal info, as well as why you are either running or rerunning if you're an incumbent, and then what are your aspirations for the position. And Lindy is going to tell me who to start with, because we're going to rotate so that not the same person gets the same first question every time. We're going to rotate through and everybody will get a chance to be one of the first to answer the question. So who are we going with first? Well, we're going to start with Teresa. Teresa, go ahead.
Hello, thank you for having us here this evening to the Caldwell Chamber and the League of Women Voters. I'm Teresa Dunham. I'm running for Canyon County Commissioner. I have been a staunch Republican since 1981, and I support our constitutional freedoms and have been active as a delegate as well for our committees. My husband and I have a farm. I am a member of Idaho Cattle Association, the Farm Bureau, and I am an FFA parent advisor in Middleton. Growth should not burden our citizens, and I look around and I see overcrowded schools, unsafe roads, and a lack of reasonable access to emergency services. Our seniors, disabled citizens, veterans, and young families should not be subsidizing the growth-related issues that should be paying for itself. I have over 23 years of patient advocacy. I have effectively fought for the people and changed international policy to allow diagnostic and insurance reimbursement. The past 4 years, I've helped hundreds of Canyon County citizens find an effective voice in land use. I have an experience with budgets with over 30 years in business management. I have sat on boards and local and nonprofit and on budget and audit committees. I'm concerned about the 84% expansion we've had in our budget here in Canyon County from $89 million to $166 million in 3 years. And I'm also a little bit concerned about taking $38 million in federal subsidies to offset the taxes. Some budget growth is necessary, like sheriff, fire, and ambulance, long-term planning, but others should be carefully scrutinized prior to adding them to our budget, which will affect our citizens. I believe leadership is a collaborative venture, and citizens are our valued partners. We need to make sure to keep including our citizens' voice and make sure that transparency and accountability to the citizens is there, and that we have clear and effective communication from the citizens to the commissioners and otherwise. Oh, I'm undone. Thank you.
And if any candidate wants me to repeat the question, I'm happy to do so at any time.
Thank you. We're just going on with me?
Sure.
Okay. Are you ready with your timer?
So ready.
Thank you for hosting us tonight. My name is Pam Blacker-Wagner. I'm born and raised Canyon County. I grew up on Wagner Road and married a Wagner. So was raised a Blacker. My family started a business in Caldwell in 1953 and used to reside out on the Caldwell Boulevard. It was Blacker's Furniture. I'm very invested in my community. For the last 20 years, I've been serving in my community in different capacities. One that has been a joy to me is facilitating Caldwell Junior Golf. So if you drive through Caldwell on a Thursday and you see little blue shirts out there, those are my kids, and I have a great partnership with the city of Caldwell. Something that I most recently endeavored in was joining the school board. I am currently the chair of the Middleton School Board. I joined during COVID. We got together and made some really hard decisions, made sure our kids were in school. That was important to us. And throughout that experience, I have learned to negotiate. I've learned to deal with personnel problems and have the ability to do that in a professional and confidential manner. I have also learned to serve my community, and that is probably the most important reason that I want to run, is I love community service and I love Canyon County. And my father used to sit right up here as a city council representative for the city of Caldwell. 9 years ago, when he passed, he was the president of the Caldwell City Council. So community service is near and dear to my heart, and I just want to follow in the footsteps of my father. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Leslie Van Beek. I'm serving as your current county commissioner for District 1. I was first sworn into office in 2019. I'm homegrown here in Canyon County, being born and raised in Nampa. I attended Boise State University with a degree in health and minor in biology. My husband and I raised 5 kids on a dairy farm where we learned a lot about work ethics, and it was a great place to grow up. When I first attended campaign school, I realized quickly my need for conflict management and negotiation. I enrolled in a graduate certification program at Boise State, and it has served me well. I'm currently seeking my 3rd term for a number of reasons, because we've started a lot of great projects with the current board. We have a lot of momentum going forward. One of the things I'm really proud of, it was a culture that needed some significant improvement when I was elected and sworn into office. I'm proud of the fact that they've got voting records, attendance records, term limits, not limits, but terms of service on the website for the public, so transparency is important to me. For anyone following my journey, you know that principles come at a price and freedom is not free. I have worked very hard to get good governance, and there's nothing quite like tenure in the seat and knowing how you operate under Title 31. So with a heart of service and a desire to see the good work go forward, there's a bright future for Canyon County, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Good evening. My name is Zach Brooks. I'm your current county commissioner from District 3. I was born and raised here. I graduated from CUNA High School, graduated from Lewis and Clark State College with a degree in business administration with an emphasis in accounting. I came back here, and today's actually my 18th anniversary. My wife and I have 6 kids that we homeschool together. So hopefully we get out of here in time. I can go to dinner, but maybe not. Anyways, I'm running to continue the good work that we have started, and there's a lot left to continue working on. So thank you for having us, and I look forward to the questions.
Hi, my name is Rich Williams. I'm also a longtime Idaho and Nampa. I graduated from Nampa High School. My grandparents started businesses in downtown Nampa many years ago in the 40s. My mom graduated from Nampa High. My in-laws graduated from Nampa High. We have a long time relationship with this community. I've worked all over the county in various jobs, including working at Pizza Hut all the way through farming activities, and then ultimately I became a person in the technology field. I've worked for Micron Computers over in Nampa. I then went on to work for Intel, and then Apple Computers, where I managed a team that was responsible for $600 million. So I feel very qualified. I had the responsibilities for budget, for staffing. I had responsibilities for solving problems, working with cross-functional teams, understanding core business principles and being able to make them happen in a $600 million business is a lot of what I offer and bring to the table here. I'm concerned as a citizen and now as a candidate about a number of things, and one of the big ones is the big issue was property tax, and we took a 26% increase in Canyon County property taxes under my opponent's first year. I'm not interested in that going forward. There was a 24% decrease the year before that on my taxes, and so you can go see that on your own time on Canyon County.
Good evening. My name is Greg Cheney. I'm running for prosecuting attorney. I've been here in this area pretty much all my life. Also graduated from CUNA High. How can two people who say they are from Canyon County graduate from CUNA High? I'll leave that for Zach to explain to you, because we grew up not too far from each other. I'm running for a number of reasons. I have a deep love for this community and have been involved and contributing to this community for a long time. I want to see it stay safe. I want to see crime stay at bay. I want to see the fentanyl epidemic addressed. We also had the sad situation of learning that one of our household members had become the victim of a pretty bad crime a few years ago. And it was nothing that law enforcement or the prosecuting attorney's office could have done better, but it was just one of those cases where there was not sufficient evidence to make sure that the person who needed to be held accountable could be held accountable. And that started, I think, an unsatisfied drive to want to see the right thing done for the right reasons. That's a very helpless feeling. I don't want my neighbors, my friends, fellow people in the county to feel the same way. That level of helplessness. To that end, my priorities include, above all, and it can be summarized as simply consistency. The prosecuting attorney's office needs to send consistent messages to the prosecuting attorneys, the community, the defense bar, and those who break the law in our county. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Boyd. I'm an experienced career prosecutor. I am an Iraq War veteran, and I'm a law and order kind of conservative. I grew up in Idaho, in southeastern Idaho. I went to law school at the University of Idaho, and I came back here and began my career as a prosecutor in Canyon County. I have over a decade of prosecuting experience. I've actually prosecuted cases, a lot of cases, thousands of cases, everything from sexual assault to domestic violence to murder and everything in between. And I've done most of that right here in this county, right over there in that courthouse. So I've done a lot of that kind of work. The reason I'm running, there are a couple of reasons. One is my mom was a victim of child abuse growing up, and so that kind of instilled in me the beginnings of a desire to be a prosecutor in the first place. But more than that, when I talk about coming to Canyon County, in the last 6 years I've been the Adams County prosecuting attorney. And I came back here because this community, this law enforcement community, is my community. This is my family. I worked with them over and over again. I stood shoulder to shoulder with them fighting for victims of crime. They're my friends, they're my family. I'm endorsed by law enforcement. Kieran Donahue called me yesterday. He was very upset about the loss of our dear neighboring deputy. They're suffering. They need help. He asked me to come. I come. I'm going to fill that gap. I will fight for victims of crime every time in this county. I will be there, and my butt will be in the chair doing the work, which has not been happening and needs to start happening.
Thank you very much for those opening introductions. I appreciate it. We're going to jump right into the first question. And this one is for all candidates, and I believe we're going to start with Pam on this one. And so, Pam, what is the most pressing issue that has come with growth in the area, in your opinion? And in your position, what would you do to address the issue?
I would say a stress on the infrastructure that constitutes our county. And from my own personal experience, the stress on our school district. We're at capacity at 2 of our elementaries at over 120% capacity. I would try to forge some relationships with all municipalities and all governmental agencies to try to find some solutions. I would try to stay away from raising taxes as much as I could, because I believe people are hurting in their own homes, and you have citizens that have lived in Idaho their whole life. They've worked hard, they've paid off their house, and they just want to retire on their little patch of heaven. And I'm not excited about finding ways to tax them out of their homes. So I would try to forge some good relationships to work on that infrastructure.
Thank you for the question. It is a daunting task to know how, and that's always the question. How do we manage growth? We have to start with a plan. We do have a comprehensive plan, but it lacks some teeth, it lacks some foundation, so we have to be working with our cities, which I have lobbied for since being sworn into office. We currently have good working relationships with the city of Nampa, the city of Caldwell. We're scheduled to meet with the city of Middleton. I attended a city council meeting there. They're struggling with being at capacity on sewer. They imposed a moratorium, which I'm not sure how that will work for the city, but to partner with the cities, I agree, is the right move. The infrastructure on that, former Mayor Rule ran on trying to get improved traffic. There's a Pell study that's nearing the end of its term there, which just means how are we going to handle the traffic and the volume on that. It's a little bit messy right now, but being willing to be a partner with our local cities and then finding a way to have affordable housing for people that are here. I don't see a wall anywhere up, but those are the challenges that we face. Thank you.
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it is a combination of housing and infrastructure. It's hard to pinpoint just one single, like what is the main issue, but one thing I guess I will throw out that's going to be a little different here is when you tie in the property taxes, a lot of people that do not want the growth fail to understand that their property taxes have decreased over the last 5 years because of the added base value to the overall property tax, the value of properties in the county, right? So you could look at that and say, well, this guy just wants to grow like crazy, but at the same time, I've grown up here my entire life, and it's been hard to watch at the pace and the rate at which growth is taking place. But at the same time, if you look at some of these smaller outlying counties, if you're not growing, you're dying. So there's got to be a balance.
I also believe that infrastructure and growth are big issues in the county. And as you look at what's transpiring in the county, the density is becoming one of the options that we have to look at. If you look at where are we building, or where would we potentially build, and how would we manage the growth? I have 2 adult children that live in the area. They cannot afford to buy a home right now, and one of the drivers that will help bring that down is more places, because of the lack of places for people to get a home provides a premium on homes. So I think that's an important aspect of it. How do we provide more housing for people that can, like my children, my adult children and their families? Along with that, as was discussed, is the infrastructure that you have to support that. So let's make sure that the other entities that we interact with are forward-thinking, like the schools, the cities, and the various infrastructure pieces. It's a hard problem to solve. It takes a business person, I believe, who has experience to try and solve those problems.
I would say it's a sense of community, and I know that sounds more like a bumper sticker than something that a prosecuting attorney candidate would say, but there was a time when pretty much everybody working in any particular agency had a general idea who everyone was. You know, our kids know a lot of people up and down the street on their way to school. You know, our business is a member of the chamber here. People are plugged in, but a lot of the new people aren't plugged in. And that has an effect on the crime rate, because when people feel anonymous, they feel like they can take liberties that they wouldn't otherwise take. When people are struggling with addiction and desperation, they don't have the support system. And a lot of our new neighbors come from places where there isn't the trust for law enforcement that we've traditionally had here in this valley. And so there's a lot of challenges with just driving a more community feel, enabling law enforcement to be community-based, community policing-based. And a lot of that would, from this seat, would come with sentencing recommendations that would keep that in mind, support systems, community involvement, and the like.
Well, I'm going to answer that question more particularized to the Canyon County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, which I know very well because I worked there for many years, and I know the people involved. And so let me just tell you what the problem is and what we're struggling with as a county because of the leadership issue in the Canyon County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. We have, unfortunately, had a prosecutor who has not been engaged. He's not been very active. He's not been very he's not been doing the job, frankly. He's not been present for much of the time. And that causes a real problem. You lose all of your prosecutors as they become really good. Right as they get to the 4 or 5 year range, right when they're becoming very good prosecutors, we lose them because people don't quit organizations. They quit the bosses. And when you have a boss who's not engaged, who's not doing the work, who's not leading from the front, and who's treating it like it's some kind of administrative job, you end up with real morale problems. This is a hard job being a prosecutor, just like being a police officer. It's hard. It hurts to deal with victims and that all the time. And you have to have someone who's actually down there in the trenches working to keep morale up.
Before we move on to the next question.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I believe that I still have to answer this question.
I apologize. I'm so sorry.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sorry about that.
Thank you. Could you please repeat exactly how the question was? Because going from the commissioners to the prosecuting attorneys,
Yes.
the focus changed a little bit.
Yes, and I'm sorry I stepped over you. The question again is, what is the most pressing issue that has come with growth in the Caldwell area? And in your position, what could you do to address the issue?
Thank you so much. Okay, I think, like the others, I think lack of infrastructure is part of that answer. But I think the bigger issue with the current growth we have is the lack of balance. Currently, we have a large number of residential properties being put in, but we are not balanced with our commercial and our industrial infrastructure or growth, which will help provide for the infrastructure. I think balanced growth starts with limiting growth as well. And we can limit growth legally within this county based on Idaho Code 6782 provisions, which allow us to authorize higher impact fees. They allow us to authorize reviews of things like our school systems, our roads, and the safety things in our community. And I think as long as we keep saying yes, we're in trouble. We need to stop, look at the Idaho Code, and slow down the growth. Thank you.
So before we ask the next question, we offered waters to some folks, but I think we might have forgotten Greg and Chris. Would you guys like a water or two?
I'll take one. Yes.
Would Thad, would you mind bringing a water up? Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So this next question, we're also going to have 60-second answers. We're going to start with Leslie on this one, and let's go right into it. Let's see here. Okay. Again, this one's for all candidates, and at any point, if you want me to repeat the question again, don't hesitate to ask, and I'll be glad to do it. Canyon County is very rich in its diversity. What steps can be taken to continue to build on the strength of our diversity in the area?
And that's, can you clarify on diversity? Is it cultural? Is it historical? Is it all of it?
Jean, I'm going to defer to you on this one. This was one of the questions for the... So I'll read it again. Canyon County is rich in its diversity. What steps can be taken to build on this strength? And it sounds like it was talking about ethnic diversity in Caldwell.
And thank you for the question. Because I'm county-wide focused, I can speak to what's happening. For instance, in our Parks Department, we have a Parks Director who builds relationships with the Native American tribes. So to embrace what that sector that has a lot of heritage out there on the scenic byway and the Snake River area and Celebration Park, that's where I'm looking for. That partnership has been a great partnership. We've also worked, I'm going to jump to the Fish and Wildlife to protect the resource on the water. We engaged with the Fish and Wildlife on a memorandum of understanding because regardless of your ethnicity, you come to enjoy certain amenities within the county. One of the things I think that we want to protect is the ability for our farmers to have labor, so that group of diversity to take care of that section for needed housing. We're looking for ways to do that with the farming community. It's a broad question. I'm not sure for the focus on Caldwell. I can tell you that in Canyon County, it's welcoming for people that want to come and contribute.
This is a hard question to answer as a commissioner, but I was also going to touch on the parks as far as just further creating opportunities for people to enjoy what this county has to offer as far as the Snake River Celebration Park, Lake Lowell, various other places that you can go here. But from an ethnic standpoint, the best thing to probably create opportunity for that is to not put moratoriums on housing. I know a lot of people that have gotten here and they want to shut the door behind them, but at the same time, it's going to be very hard if you completely stop growth. You're going to see property values and home prices go even higher. So there's got to be a continued balance, or even more shift towards balance in housing, if we want to see more diversity in that regard.
I believe that diversity is, by definition, cultural. I grew up in a household where my dad was in the military. We traveled quite extensively. When I grew up, I didn't see any differences between the different cultures. We had all of them, and we were all friends, and we all interacted with one another. And that, to me, happens as we treat people with respect. We understand their needs. We have daily interactions where people are treated the same, regardless of what their backgrounds are. So even at the county level, I think it's important that those kinds of things have to happen. I traveled worldwide in my job. I've met numerous people of all cultures. So I believe that when we learn about people, we understand them better, and therefore the diversity becomes inherent. I like also that we celebrate the differences. One of the things about diversity and culture is we are different. So let's not try and hide that. At the same time, and perhaps more importantly, embrace our similarities. Let's treat each other with kindness and respect, and the diversity becomes a part of our culture here in the county.
Obviously, justice needs to be blind. It needs to be colorblind and then blind in every other way. But practically speaking, trust isn't blind. And various groups have greater and lesser confidence in law enforcement, in the legal system, prosecutors, judges, juries, than others. And so if you want, practically speaking, to get a case to resolution, you have to build trust with your witnesses, you have to build trust with the crime victim, and so it's important to at least understand, in the interest of protecting those populations, that even if you do treat everybody exactly the same words coming out of your mouth might mean something different to somebody else. And finding whether it's a cultural difference, whether it's a ethnic difference, whether it's just because somebody moved here from New York City and they are used to a certain way that things were done. No matter what it is that is standing in the way of rapport and trust in the legal system, it's important to recognize those barriers to communication and to address them.
I actually like that, what was said, and I totally agree with it. I think that it's really important that we see each other as equals and as friends, and that we treat each other with love and respect. I love the fact that Canyon County has a huge Hispanic community. I think it's awesome. I think that it's one of my favorite things about it, actually. I speak fluent Spanish. I served a mission in Chile, and so Santiago, Chile, and I served 2 years there. And I just really love different cultures, so it's exciting for me to do that. It's also really useful to be able to speak Spanish to your witnesses. to your victims of crime. As a prosecutor, that's been a great blessing to me. It was a huge blessing for me to do that. And it's important as a prosecutor's office to try to hire as many people as you can who do speak fluent Spanish, especially in a place like this, so you can reach out directly to people. That does help with that trust issue quite a lot, and that's been my experience. It's the same with the police officers. You need as many as you can that are fluent Spanish speakers so that they can reach out to the communities that might feel a little marginalized, if you will.
I view diversity similar to Rich. It's a culture. I view it as a cultural diversity. I come from a different background. I came from communist Bulgaria. My family escaped. So I have looked through the lens from the other side. I think we need to honor the heritage of our community members, and through active involvement as commissioners, with active involvement with our citizens, allowing their voice, allowing their input, regardless of who they are, is super important in honoring that. I think seeking first to understand where people are coming from, and then helping to assure that they are able to have the latitude to create within our community things that work for them, especially if we have a larger number of people within a specific cultural diversity. So I think first seek to understand, and next honor. Thank you.
Did you clarify, was that ethnic or ethic? Ethnic, thank you. I think when you are a Canyon County Commissioner and you're elected, you represent the whole county, not just a certain ethnicity. I think it is important to celebrate differences, but embrace our similarities and work together to embrace those, such as a 4th of July celebration. We're all Americans here, and we're going to all celebrate together. So just having an outreach. As a school board chair, I represent all students. I don't represent certain partisan groups, whatever. I am going to defend every child that walks through that door and make sure that they're getting the education they need. So that is very important to me.
Thank you very much. This next question is for the commissioner candidates. So we'll go through the 4 commissioner candidates, and then the next question we're going to go with the prosecuting attorney. So for our commissioner candidates, county commissions are required to build relationships with many other government and non-government entities. What strategies have you used in the past to build relationships between partners? And Zach, we're going to start with you, Commissioner Brooks.
All right, so since I've been a commissioner, I've been appointed to the Urban Renewal Board, Compass, Southwest District Health. So the first part is you just got to show up and go to work. And then as a board, this board has been very focused on creating relationships, repairing some of them, and building new ones. As Commissioner Van Beek mentioned earlier, we have met with the city of Caldwell, Nampa's Development Services Department. We've got a scheduled meeting with Middleton, on and on. So a lot of it is just showing up, introducing yourself, and as a board, we can go out individually, but we've also done a very good job of inviting people to the commissioner chambers, such as the Black Canyon Irrigation District, all the fire marshals and fire chiefs in the county. So we just continue to do that going forward.
I guess my name tag fell down, so this is Rich Williams again. In my career, what I learned very quickly is that it's not very often that I'm in control of everything. When I managed a $600 million business unit for Apple, I had to interact with all of the other departments that supported me or that we partnered with together. And in the corporate world, we call it cross-functional, which means that you have subject matter experts in varying departments, and that's what they are. So at a county level, I see that as the elected officials, and I see that as department heads, and being able, first of all, to listen to each one of them and understand where they're coming from and respect the expertise that they offer and provide. Secondly, I was once told that the smartest person in the room is the one who listens to the other smart people in the room. And so I think open discussion and having testimony and hearing everybody that has been called upon. And then I think as a commissioner, you could proactively take an approach. If you're considering the future, maybe you ought to have all the builders come in and talk about what they're concerned with and understand. Or maybe you ought to have all the ag people come in and have a meeting to understand where they're coming from. But you guys know who I am, don't you? Thank you.
I would have to say I agree very much with Rich Williams on many of the things that he said. I think that in building relationships, whether it is within your own organization or across platforms, first we need to seek to understand the issues. Sometimes we are all too quick to determine the issue without asking first. I think we need to identify common objectives, and then we need to seek to allow each division that we're working with to determine their own methods that work within the methodologies of how they operate. It's not our job to micromanage. Lastly, I think we all need to take extreme ownership because sometimes we're wrong. And when we do, we have to have the grace and the latitude to be able to accept that and allow that to be remedied.
Thank you. I would say the more I know, the less I know. But something that I think is important when you're forging relationships with others is honestly to seek the experts, then listen more than you're going to talk, and then ask hard questions and be able to have those conversations with somebody else or some other entity. You might not see eye to eye, but you need to ask the hard questions. It's good to have a dialogue, and it's okay to disagree, because I think the best solutions come when we have different opinions and we bounce off of each other. Then we find the best solution. And most importantly, I think you have to respect differences. You have to respect that in people. And again, I would end with listen. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. If you just listen, you're going to learn a lot.
Thank you for the question. The question is, what kind of relationships have we built with both government and non-governmental entities? Andrew Jackson, if you look at his presidency, formed what became famous as the kitchen cabinet. So I agree that we need people, and there's no way to know all of the information that's required under Title 31 of the Idaho State Code. So I inherently believe that the citizens should be able to touch local government. I had an idea back in the early term of my first term to have it was a community meeting with commissioners. It's now branded as Cookies with Commissioners. So it's similar to what Chief Ingram does here on Conversations with the Chief, where you come, you gather, you figure out what your citizen base is about. I've been intentional to meet with all the mayors of each city in Canyon County. I love meeting the city councilmen. My friends are Councilman Williams, Councilman Doty. Appreciate them being here tonight. We've met with fire marshals. I have an upcoming meeting with the fire marshal in Middleton. Legislators, appreciate Senator Trakel. I went to testify at a bill that would affect a landfill. He was there and was positive of commissioners. AAFE, Advocates Against Family Violence. I built relationships with local law enforcement. Looking at the Interfaith Sanctuary in Boise, Ada County, the developers, farmers, Nampa Development Services, ITD. It's a webbed network that's extensive, and it's required if you're a county commissioner. It's a great question.
All right, as I mentioned a minute ago, this next question is going to be for our prosecuting attorney candidate. And let's see, we're going to start with Chris on this one. All right. For our prosecuting attorneys, how have the recent mandatory minimum laws changed the work of a prosecuting attorney?
So there's only one new recent mandatory minimum law, which is fentanyl. And we've had a real problem with fentanyl over the years. I don't know how many times we've had cases where we have people who have suitcases full of pills, full of fentanyl. That's enough to kill cities, our entire county, most of the state probably. And we end up letting them off on a felony PCS, which is just a regular random drug drug felony. And that's all we've had for them. We haven't had anything bigger. And when you've got that much stuff, we don't have the tools that you need to put away traffickers. That's a real problem. So we do have that trafficking statute back. We're happy to have it. And I've put away a lot of drug traffickers over the years. So we're going to put it to good use. I've put away methamphetamine traffickers and cocaine traffickers, and I'm going to keep doing that with fentanyl, and I'm excited to do that. So I'm appreciative of the legislature for getting it done, and I've got the experience to put it to work.
Thank you. Like Chris said, there's only one new mandatory minimum that had been attempted to be done for several years. I was excited to finally see them do that. Carried the original version of the bill way back when I was in the legislature a million years ago. Didn't get through the legislature, got it through now. It doesn't really change the dynamic, but what you do with it, it's kind of like a dog that chases cars. You ever wonder what the dog would do if it ever caught the car? Well, in this case, you're going to find out. The goal of mandatory minimum sentences is to trade up for bigger fish. It's not simply a harsher charge to leverage a more willing defense plea. It's intended to try to get the bigger fish. Our mandatory minimums work. They keep traffickers out of the state, out of the county. Obviously, they're still flooding in, but there's evidence that shows that they do try to, in certain cases, avoid us because when those are not only on the books, but they are enforced. So making sure that those are appropriately used for the proper reasons and not necessarily pled down unnecessarily, like Chris mentioned.
All right. This next one is also for our prosecuting attorney candidates. So, Greg, we're going to start with you on this one. What efforts are being taken to address crime rates in Canyon County, and what more do you think can be done?
Well, I really appreciate the work of our law enforcement partners. I think that Rex here in Caldwell, Chief Huff, Nampa, Kieran, the smaller agencies are all doing the best they possibly can. I think that we have incredible law enforcement here. We're very blessed, especially as the job has gotten harder and less popular. I would say that sending a consistent message through not only plea deals, but the defense bar in this state needs retrained a little bit, or in this county needs retrained a little bit, as far as what to expect. And a greater level of consistency coming out of the PA's office is an important step in addressing that long term. Furthermore, like I was talking about earlier, a greater sense of community will also aid law enforcement and the prosecuting attorney's office.
Well, your law enforcement are only as effective as your prosecutors are. So you have to stand shoulder to shoulder with them and fight for every one of those cases. They make an arrest and they walk out the back door because the prosecutor doesn't do his job, then we're out of luck. So it's a two-way street. The police train the prosecutors, and the prosecutors train the police. I've got a lot of experience in doing that. You have to have that back and forth. That's kind of broken down at this point. That's mostly an issue of leadership, honestly, and I'm just playing it with you straight. We are losing good prosecutors in this county nonstop. We have lost all of the ones who are capable, and those are the ones who you want fighting for you if you're a victim of crime. We've got to get good leadership back in there. We've got to have someone who's willing to lead from the front, someone who has the experience to fight, and someone who's endorsed by law enforcement. I'm all of those things. I've been doing that for years, and I'm the only one here who's prosecuted cases. I've prosecuted thousands of these cases, and I'll keep doing that if you vote for me in May 21st.
All right. We have one last question before I'll give the option to take a very short break if anybody needs it, and then we're going to jump into the questions from the audience. Audience, just a reminder, if you have questions you'd like to submit, there's cards and pens on the seats. Just raise your hand, and we have a couple of folks that are going to collect those from you. We've got Rob right over here in the blue shirt, Sarah in the back, and they'll collect those, and we'll combine those questions so that they're not repetitive, and then some mild screening. And other than that, then we'll jump right back into it. So this last question is for all the candidates, and I believe we're starting with Rich. So Rich Williams, we'll start with you on this one. What does a healthy and prosperous Canyon County look like in 5 years from now? What role would you play in helping us get to that point?
Wow, that's a great question. It's one of the reasons I got into this and decided to run. I care about what's 5 and 10 years from now because, as I mentioned, I have kids in the area who now have grandkids of mine, 11 of them, that we care about what happens in 5 years. To me, it looks like managed growth. It looks like partnerships with our community in a way that we can understand what their issues and needs are, like the agricultural region. How does that get properly protected? How do we enable farmers to be successful and have good businesses? That the infrastructure pieces are moving along at the same rate as the development is, so that we're not constantly battling poor roads, congested traffic, higher crime for that matter, and that we're really looking at, and then partnering with some of the other entities like the cities and the schools, because they're affected by the same growth. And if we're enabling a lot of development and they're not on pace with their side of it, with schools and the cities, then it becomes congested and very difficult for all of us.
From the PA perspective, I think it looks like safe streets. I think it looks like my kids still feeling like they can walk to school. There aren't any gang tags. There aren't any fears about are going to get picked up or attempted to get picked up as they walk to school. We live in a utopia compared to a lot of areas of the country, but we still have room to grow in that respect. I think 5 years from now, it would be great if we had a greater feeling of unity and community, like Rich. I always look at his literature. He said he's sixth generation Canyon County. I'm only fifth, but we do have the sixth and the seventh already living here. And so I think about them and about the importance of not compromising on the important things. The important things, of course, being the more serious crimes, the sorts of things such as fentanyl, and on making sure that we are upholding the standards that the community expects of us.
Well, I'm excited for the future of Canyon County, and I think that we can have a county, and in particular, you can see this city of Caldwell. You can see such great things happening right now within the Caldwell Police Department. I'm so gratified to see that the changes in leadership and the changes that have been made are fantastic. I'm so excited about that. And the reason that matters is because we have a lot of addictions here on the streets of this city and throughout the county, but in particular here. We got a lot of those. And if we can develop the kind of partnerships where we're working together, where we have a plan and we plug the holes, right? Where we plug the holes in the addiction cycle where people get worse and worse and they sometimes become more and more criminals. Those people, they can turn their lives around. They're our friends, they're our brothers, our sisters, many of them, and they're stuck in addiction cycles. If we work with them and if we actually, law enforcement, prosecutors work hand in hand in that, we can actually see a huge turnaround. So I'm really excited to see what can be done in Canyon County in the future.
Could you please repeat that question? Thank you.
So the question was, what does a healthy and prosperous Canyon County look like in 5 years' time? And what role would you play in helping us to get there?
Okay. I believe that Canyon County in 5 years should have economic stability and prosperity. We should balance our agriculture, our residential living, and our commercial and light industrial growth. Agriculture leads to stability because it provides less stress on all of our resources like our schools, roads. It adds water to our aquifers. Commercial and light industrial provides jobs for our citizens, and residential provides vitality and life and growth and future hope for our region. So I think that's what I would like to see in our future for Canyon County.
Thank you. I see vibrant downtowns like Destination Caldwell, Indian Creek Plaza. I see schools thriving. I see businesses, new, forming, and old thriving. I see a robust Snake River Stampede, a wonderful Caldwell Night Rodeo. Farmers are thriving. The Canyon County Fair is thriving. But most important, the place that we live will be a place where people want to work, where they shop, and where they recreate. That's where I see Canyon County in 5 years.
And I don't disagree with that. That takes top-down leadership. So when you have a leadership team that is cohesive, and whether you call it a three-headed monster or a nine-headed monster, the Board of County Commissioners really does lead the way according to Idaho State statute as the chief executive authority. They build relationships with other elected officials. We're behind on having policy in place, so to have the board focused on good policies so that policy drives practice and not the other way around will eliminate some of the crisis management that's in place now, where we're looking for the foundation of how the policies should be implemented. So it is partnership. I have really enjoyed the partnership with the City of Caldwell. We attended that last Indian Creek Steakhouse luncheon with the chief, where there was excitement about what the future of Caldwell and Canyon County looks like when you have that kind of tenured leadership in place. So it's strategic growth, it's support for law enforcement, it's a restored faith in local government. I believe that by re-electing good people to office, those things that have been talked about, which I believe are important, it comes from good leadership. Thank you.
I hope Canyon County looks similar to what it does now in 5 years, but it's improved. I hope we've gotten through a lot of the super fast growth. I hope infrastructure is caught up. From a commissioner standpoint, I hope that the current board is reelected and we can continue working on building those relationships that we discussed earlier with our other partners in other jurisdictions, to the point where we can get on the same page as far as cities are concerned with our comprehensive plans. We have areas in this county where plans overlap and do not have the same long-term vision in place. My family's here. I agree with Rich. I hope it's a place where our kids can actually afford to buy a house or build one if they would like to, or at this point, if they want to rent one, they can afford to. So I hope it's just an improved version of where it's headed right now. Thank you.
So I'm going to give our folks up here the option. We can take a super short 5-minute break if you need it, or we can jump straight into the questions from the audience, and then we'll get through some of those. Anybody have a preference one way or another?
I think Zach has a date, so we better hurry.
Do we want to power through?
Yes, please.
Yep. Well, let's get a water for Greg, please, if we could. And
Another one? No.
Yes, because it is 7 o'clock and we do have meetings in
Let's
other
power
locations
through.
where people are waiting.
all right, I wanted to give you the option. Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to get some more water up here. We're going to stick with 60-second answers again on these. And I believe, Sarah, we've got them grouped. We have some questions that are for the commissioner candidates. We have some questions for the PA, and we have some questions for all.
That's a lot of questions.
Okay.
A lot of cards.
Okay. Okay. So we've got a couple that overlap. Okay. And this is for the commission. And these two here? Okay. Okay. Okay, we'll come back to those. All right, so the first one we're going to go to is for all of our candidates, and we're going to start with Greg Cheney on this one. And Greg, and all the candidates, please. In your own words, please define affordable housing and how we can achieve it. Starting with an easy one, right?
Well, I think affordable housing, it means that you can, as a family, as a cohesive unit, pay the rent and still eat something other than ramen. That's not, I'm sure, the government's definition. It's not an eloquent definition, but that's what I think of when I think of affordable housing. A lot of that's going to depend on not only what happens with growth, but also what happens with employment and jobs. And are jobs being brought in that pay enough to be capable of paying for the housing that's here? There is a tie-in to the degree that we don't have crime under control, to the degree that we don't have safe streets and confidence in the legal system. We don't have investors willing to put themselves out and bring those jobs. The cost of the housing issue itself is pretty complex. If you keep building, you hope it goes down, but it doesn't seem to be. If you stop building, it's probably going to go way up. But there is some contribution where we can make sure that this is still a safe and wholesome place to live, work, and bring your business.
Great, my turn. Affordable housing. So usually the standard rule is 20% of your income towards housing, no more than that. So if you're looking at a median income, that's not too bad. But if you're looking at a really poverty-stricken income, you're talking about a pretty low rental rate, which is pretty tough to do. So I don't know what the answers are to all those problems. I'm a prosecutor. I focus in on getting criminals off the streets so they can be safe for you and safe for people to walk around in the first place. Interestingly enough, crime is not really directly correlated with poverty. So people living in affordable housing aren't the ones committing all the crime. Isn't that interesting? You'd think that would be the case, but studies don't actually show that. So kind of interesting. But I do agree with Greg, what he just said earlier about there is a tie-in for prosecutors to stand shoulder to shoulder with police officers and get the work done. If you get that done, which I have a lot of experience getting it done, then streets are as safe as they can be, prices are as low as they can be. That's where my tie-in is. It's not exactly as direct as the commissioners.
Affordable housing is a housing where families can afford to live, eat, and take care of themselves. I guess that's probably a really simply refined way of stating it. I think that in some cases we need to look at how we can create higher density housing within the cores of cities, so that people can work, walk, live within the same community. At the same time, we need to make sure that we ensure that agriculturally we are continuing to provide food locally where it is going to help these families to be able to eat well and eat an affordable, healthy food. So affordable housing, I would say probably higher density, 15-minute cities, and preservation of our local agriculture for the benefit of the citizens.
Thank you. To say it shortly, you want a place where people work, shop, and recreate, right? That's affordable housing. But with that being said, we also have a lot of large corporations that need workers, and that median income is not going to meet up to the median home price. So there has to be options available for them. You have Amazon, you have Lactillus, you have Go-Go Squeeze, you have the Sugar Beet Factory. That requires a certain pay grade, and if we raise their salaries, then everything else is going to go up for us. So somehow there has to be a way to implement housing for those citizens. So again, affordable housing is where people can work, shop, and recreate.
Thanks for the question. It was interesting. I had this conversation this morning with the Building Contractors Association. They don't have the answer either. So if anybody has that, it's the million-dollar question. They're being affected by supplies shortages, impact fees, which a lot of people are calling for those, and I agree that there's potentially a place, but they do come at a price to put those studies into place, and then there's an 8.5-year period where those have to be used. It all adds to the price of housing, and so what constitutes affordable housing for one, somebody else may not necessarily. What I don't think we should equate it to is cheap housing. We had the conversation that maybe a lower end building had routed a dryer duct vent between walls, and it created a mold issue, and they had to gut that and start over. That's not what we want. So I think building standards, architectural standards, some of that, so that there's a minimum quality standard when we're talking about putting our kids in a house, is a good thing. I do like the work, lot, walk, and live. Middleton has done a good job with that. And when we're saying high density, not everybody wants to live in high density. So our comp plan calls for diversity in housing choices. Some people choose to live in a more rural setting. I think there has to be a place for that also on the comprehensive plan. So again, it's teamwork and looking at what we want our communities to build out. Caldwell's embraced probably the most affordable choice for housing in the valley. Thank you.
I thought we established I wasn't going to go after you anymore. So I'm not going to say a whole lot that's new. It is affordable is relative, right? I mean, what's going to be affordable for me with 8 mouths to feed is not going to be the same for others. But it does need to be a place where you can afford your housing and your food and everything else. But as a commissioner, one of the things that we get to do is look at these larger entities that are looking at coming to Canyon County to work or to build a business, and through tax exemptions, the state code, I think it's 50-602, has got a whole bunch of them. So that's been an interesting process in looking at which entities meet the criteria for our county to receive a tax exemption. Do they compete with anyone that is currently existing here and whatnot? And again, going back to those that may want to stop growth, those larger businesses that are coming here and they're going to pay a higher wage, they're not coming here because nobody lives here. So, thank you.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and as I mentioned, my family is now facing that. And when I look at affordable housing, I ask myself, what happened to the day when incomes paced with the housing market? And there are numerous factors, and we've all talked about them, and I think we're all smart enough to know what those are. There's land issues, there's costs of materials, there's taxing of different levels. All of those things have to be addressed, and so at a county level and as a commissioner level, we have to talk about what can we do to make a difference about that affordable housing. And one of them is tax increases or the lack thereof. And I mentioned early on in tonight's discussion that we had a 23% tax increase on my bill that I brought here tonight. All people had something like that. So we've got to look at that on the county level. We have to look at land. We have to look at development costs, impact fees. All of those in the end come down to what creates that affordable housing.
All right. This next question is actually, this is going to be for our commissioner candidates, and I believe, Teresa, we're going to start with you. Is that correct? Yep. So, Teresa, we're going to start with you. And I'm shooting from the hip on this one because we have two somewhat similar in nature questions, but they're also two different questions. So I'm going to read them both, and we're going to let you interpret the crux of the question here because I figure we got it from two different people. It's going to be an issue on the top of people's mind, and some of you have already actually touched on this at one time or another. So without further ado, I'll read them both, and then would love your interpretation of how to answer these. In 1 minute, no less. First question. Canyon County is one of the largest seed-growing regions in the world due to its unique soil and climate. Seed is a matter of national security. What would you do to protect Canyon County's seed-growing region? And the second question. As long as I can remember, county commissioners ran on a platform of saving ag. To the contrary, city councils often receive annexations of ag ground for development. What would you do in your position to stop this? And I can repeat anything you need, because I know that's a lot.
No, it is a lot. I'm sorry, I'm getting a cramp in my leg. Okay, so I think I'm going to turn these questions around. First of all, Canyon County is responsible for what they allow to annex and not annex. And we have laws and we have regulations within Idaho Code 67 that give us the latitude and the freedom to not only make those decisions, but also to use our comprehensive plan in making those decisions and using other resources we have available, such as modeling that we have from organizations such as the American the American Farm Trust. The Farm Trust has created some beautiful overlays and some models. They have done it with some citizens, like myself, and worked with the county, but the county seems to sometimes ignore those things. I think the county needs to look at taking our agriculture seriously. As somebody in that question said, our seed industry, as well as our agriculture industry, is necessary not only for food security, but for our economic stability in the region, and that has to be protected, and I will do everything to protect agriculture within the agricultural areas of our county.
Thank you. As a young girl growing up and having a family that thrived on a business, I was always told that if the farmers don't do well, we're not going to do well. And I grew up on Wagner Road across the street from a farm, and where I live, out behind my house, there's a farm. So I do strongly support preserving our farms. We have some corporations in our county that have been in existence and I would use Crookham Seed as one. As a young girl, I used to ride my bike by some of their facilities. It's kind of fun. I think it's important. As far as annexing goes, I believe there has to be some good partnerships in there with all entities, and that we work together to preserve the agricultural fill that Canyon County has.
Thank you for the question. I'm actually in ag. My husband retired out of Simplot Grower Solution, and we've spent a lifetime, all of our married life, row crop farming or on a dairy operation. So one of the things I think that it's important when we say preserve, you have to also speak from the farmer's perspective. I have had farmers, including our own family, when you get perhaps to the end of that, when you don't have a succession plan in farming, or you have health issues that happen, the farmer has to be consulted. I can tell you that for the urban renewal area that happened on the east portion, the farm ground that was contained therein, it was a voluntary. That's what the legislation is talking about too. There's nothing that's not voluntary about it. If you look at the Midstar process and the annexation that took place, a denial on the part of the county or a non-acceptance of either city to agree to the plan that's laid out triggers potentially litigation. The city of Middleton spent more than $1 million in taxpayer dollars fighting that. So to make blanket statements without understanding the process is uninformed. So when a city proposes growth, that means that they've planned for that, and to work in tandem with the county to say this is where planned growth should take place. They have a right under Idaho state statute to do that. It is a working partnership. And so let's be clear about what we're talking about.
We need to change the order of who answers here. A lot of that question is very charged, right? Commissioners do tend to run on the ag preservation. That's pretty hyper right now. At the same time, let's look at it from the comprehensive plan aspect, the newest one that is affecting the county. It's a swing back the other direction to where the previous comp plan was viewed as not as supportive or protective of ag, and now it's gone completely the other direction to where it's almost a level of takings from property rights. That balance needs to be struck better, because there's a significant number of farmers, almost to the allotment of about 19,000 acres in this county, that didn't support the comp plan because they understand that's their long-term savings, and if they need to be able to sell some ground to develop it, for somebody else to develop it, they need to have that ability to do so.
Travis, can I don't want to butt in, but I do want to, in support perhaps of what, one of the opponents, but we protected ag ground next to the alders in Melba. That was seed ground, and we turned a development down. We also protected Vandenberg Dairy's right to farm around there by denying that, so.
So I appreciate that. We will, I want to save additional comments for afterward for those that are able to stay, and just in an effort to keep it fair to all parties. So, thank you.
Yeah, my dad worked for Pioneer Seed and retired from over there, and he depended on his income and his ability to thrive there. And so as I look at these kinds of issues, clearly there has to be a balance. But once the land's gone for something else, it's gone, and we can't go back out and grab land that has been taken away. So it does have to be a very strategic positioning to try and do that appropriately. What I think is that we need more input from all the affected parties, and we need to do that proactively. I know we have a comprehensive plan, but how much of that information came from the agricultural community? How much information came from the building community? How much came from citizens who are impacted by the ability to have property and own it and develop it as they would like? My preference would be to have more community meetings. Commissioner's a full-time job, so let's dedicate more time to hearing from the business people in the community, the citizens, and the agricultural people to do it right.
Our next question is for our prosecuting attorney candidates, and we are going to start with Chris on this one. The question is, what will you do if elected to hit the ground running so no cases are postponed and the ball isn't dropped on current cases?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think that you have to make sure that you have, one, a good relationship with the people who work there, and then you've got to be able to lead them to continue to do that. Now, one, I know how to do that. I've worked in that office, that very self-same office, for years. I know exactly what needs to be done to hit the ground running. I know exactly how to handle those cases because I've worked with them. They're my family, essentially. And if you ask any of those folks who they want to be their next leader, they'll tell you it's me because they worked with me. They know me. They know I can hit the ground running and I can hit those cases. I know exactly how to keep it, and we won't drop the ball because we have that relationship already pre-charged. So we're ready to go. It's the same reason that law enforcement's endorsing me. It's the same reason that over 130 Nampa PD officers endorse me. It's the same reason that Wilder PD has endorsed me, that Parma PD has endorsed me, and that Sheriff Donahue's endorsed me. It's because they know me and they know my work. They know I'll keep it up. I won't drop the ball. I'll keep it going for you guys. We're going to actually increase our I think we'll do a lot better job on conviction rates, things like that, because a lot of that is just a lack of engagement from leadership. So if you have a leader that's engaged, that knows what he's doing, that loves what he's doing, you're going to get real good results. So I'm so excited to do that for you.
Thank you. Well, Brian, the outgoing incumbent, has made the suggestion that whomever wins the primary, he would put on staff ahead of the changeover. Beyond that, my law firm here in Caldwell, I have extensive experience supervising other attorneys, helping them manage their caseload, and contributing to their professional development. So through that, it's clear that those caseloads can continue to move on, whether the transition happens immediately after the primary or whether it happens in January. Furthermore, it is a 93-person department, and so while certainly the person who wins this race needs to know what they're talking about, know what they're doing, and be able to lead, it's a 93-person department with 35 attorneys, and so there isn't going to be any actual interruption because Brian Taylor himself doesn't have a caseload per se.
All right, we have time for one more question for all the candidates, and I think it's going to be a sort of a fun one to end on because you can answer very quickly if you choose, or you can take your full minute for it. So who are we starting with?
Me.
Pam, we're going to start with you, and this is a question for everybody. Do any of you disagree with the position that the most grievous problem is too much government? Do any of you disagree with the position that the most grievous problem is too much government?
Do I disagree? No. I think we can do things efficiently, under the exception of safety. Public safety, the community grows, you've got to meet those needs. As far as that goes in the ambulance district, you've got to meet needs, and education. So, but no. And there's certain other aspects that they can be combined in one. So, no.
I think the most egregious problem is not government, but poor governance. And so when we have leaders, and it is easy in an elected position to look at the power component of that or the greed component of that, anything other than a desire to serve and to meet the community's needs is poor governance. And I think that's really the most egregious.
To play off of that, government is good, but I think when somebody says it's egregious that there's too much government, I think they're more making reference to the bureaucracy. So that's one thing that we've been focusing on as a board is over the years, you've had individual commissioners going into specific departments. So if you're not familiar with the board, it's subject to open meeting laws. So basically, if one commissioner comes to you and gives you direction, a good department head is going to look at you and say, you're just one, I need to hear this from two or more of you, correct? And what has happened in the past is commissioners single-handedly have gone into certain departments and kind of wreaked havoc by giving direction and then, hey, that's my boss, I got to listen to him. So I don't disagree with the spirit of the comment, but I think it's a little more nuanced than what it is on its face.
I think all citizens believe that there's too much government. The question is, where do the services get pinched, where the budgets get addressed or challenged? And so, in my point of view is that you want somebody that's going to make a decision based on business principles, not on governmental principles. And so as a candidate, that's why I feel like I'm qualified when I decided to enter the race, is I've been making business decisions in a corporate environment that's as large or larger than Canyon County for the last 30 years. And yeah, it's all complex, but that's why you need somebody who has the ability to look at complex matters, gather data from the various interested parties, and make a difference. Do I believe that right over here in Canyon County right now, there's departments that are probably operating beyond their means? Yeah, I do. Do I know what those might be? No, but that's the job of a commissioner working with those department heads and the elected officials to understand what are their needs and are they meeting the needs, or are there ways that we can improve upon the budget in the budgeting process? An opening meeting is a critical component of that.
I don't disagree with the spirit of that statement. I think that too much government is a problem. I would concur with some of the other statements that say government used in a vexatious way, in an uneven, unfair, pointed way, or one that drives at a particular benefit for one group at the expense of another. That's a problem. I also think that you get what you pay for in government. And so government done poorly can be a smaller government, perhaps, than a government done well. That doesn't mean that more money fixes things, but that does mean that when you talk about human capital and investment in people, what the time running private practice here in Caldwell has taught me, and it colored my philosophy approaching government as well, is that you need good people and you get what you pay for, and that is not a good place to cut corners to make sure you have a small government. Cutting the bureaucracy, like somebody else said, making sure that you're streamlined and you're doing things that are prioritized is the right way to limit government.
The most grievous was the way the question was phrased, which is kind of a tricky kind of way to deal with it, and everybody's grappled with it, as you can see. But the thing about the most grievous, I've gone back and forth as I sat here and thought, actually, it is probably the most grievous. The reason I say it is political prosecutions in this country right now will tear this country apart and will end our republic as we know it. It really has a huge danger to us. And when you see people getting prosecuted because of their political beliefs, when you see people getting prosecuted because they're running for the presidency, that's a huge, huge problem. And that hopefully will never happen here in Canyon County. But if once a prosecutor starts to do it, that is a slope that just it's slippery all the way to the bottom. And once people lose trust in their prosecutor as being, as actually being on the side of truth and right, they lose trust in the whole system, from the police officers, and the whole thing just falls apart. So yeah, that's big government in the worst kind of government. And yeah, that's probably is the biggest danger to the country.
I always hate going after you, Chris, because being an attorney, you've just got all the right words. Okay, so I believe too much government is probably the most grievous. When we get too much government in there, we end up with a lot of bureaucracy that really doesn't get resolved to the citizen level, and it costs the citizens a lot of money. I think we need to have even application of principles, analytics to measure, and metrics to measure by. And I think that those things are necessary in the government, and I think that sometimes we lack those things. I've seen and heard of a lot of uneven application. I do appreciate that we have open meeting laws, and we need to follow those closely. And I do believe that we need to make sure that we have applied correct analytics and metrics as we grow our government to make sure we're growing in a correct way.
Well, I don't know how we did it, but we are within 1 minute of our target time. So before we excuse all the folks that are up here, what I want to say is there are lots more questions from the audience that we did not have time for. So what I would like to do, I don't know if all of you have Facebook or not. If you don't, then we'll have you submit it to the chamber if you so choose. We will post all of these questions that did not get asked on the Chamber of Commerce, the Caldwell Chamber's Facebook page. And if you would like to jump on and answer those in that public venue, we would encourage you to do so. If you don't have Facebook, you can submit it. If you want to answer any of the questions, you can submit it to us, and we'll cut and paste. We will not alter your comments in any way. We'll give you a chance to address all the questions that did not get asked tonight. So that said, we're going to go to a very short break. I would ask that anybody that can stay, please do so and take advantage of the time to meet with some folks. I know you got to go. Let's give everybody a nice round of applause for participating. And we're going to take 5 minutes and be right back. Okay, we're going to get started again. I think we've had more than 5 minutes. Those of you that can stay, please do so. We're going to have some more meet and mingle time, but I'd love to give a chance for to introduce some of the other candidates that haven't been at the mic yet. Whatever your favorite Okay, let me know when we're... Okay. All right, we are back, and we are streaming once again. So I asked the candidates that came tonight that were in the audience for the majority if they would be willing to step up to the microphone and get a little bit of time since you came and showed up. And I really appreciate you showing up, even though we didn't have a lot of time to give you tonight. But since we have some time at the end, we're going to give you some time. So with us, we have running for state senator, we have Camille Blaylock. And we also have Chris Trakel, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. And then we also have Sarah Cheney for State Representative Seat B. And so we're gonna, let's start with Sarah. And we're gonna give you the same question that we asked all the other candidates at the beginning, which is, we're gonna give you 2 minutes. We're gonna give you a little extra time. So 2 minutes, personal introduction, why are you running, and what are your aspirations if you're in the position?
Yeah, my name is Sarah Cheney, and I am a wife, mother, woman of faith, and Idaho native. I was born and raised in Weiser, Idaho, here in 1980, so I'm a lifelong resident of Idaho. I've been in Canyon County for the last almost 12 years, and I'm running because I love Idaho, and I want to keep Idaho, the Idaho that I grew up in. The Idaho I grew up in kept our kids safe from drugs. It backs the blue. It supports agriculture and the farmers, big and small, that drive our economy. And the Idaho I grew up in supports educators and also supports the best learning environments for our children, whatever that might be. And I guess some of the things that I'm passionate about when I'm elected is adoption reform. I've heard a lot at the door that you know, we're all pro-life on the Republican ticket, and I think that we need to cut some red tape to make adoption more readily accessible to those who want to adopt a child who's chosen life. So that's kind of what I'm passionate about.
Camille Blaylock, running for Senate in District 11. I am a mom as well to 2 school-age kiddos. I am a wife and a college graduate. I've spent the last almost 18 years in working in the private sector, so love the chamber and support business people running for office and having that perspective in government roles. I am a lifelong Idahoan, lifelong Republican. I am running for office because I love my kids, my family, this state and this country. But I am concerned about the future of those things. You know, a few years ago, I kind of stepped back from politics, was really kind of disengaged from all of it, and it was just getting so negative, and I was pretty disheartened with a lot of what was going on. And as I started to re-engage, it just seemed like the negativity was worse than ever, and the divide between the left and the right was pretty deep, and even the divide within the Republican Party, and I just wasn't sure where I fit anymore as a Republican in the state. As I talked to neighbors and friends, I realized that I wasn't alone in that feeling. And so that's why I'm running, not, to be the voice for the left or the voice for the far right, but for the unrepresented majority of Republicans in my community. These are good Republicans that, love Idaho. They built Idaho. Republicans that grew up here with the same Idaho values that we all love, values where we reward hard work and we teach resilience and grit, and we take pride in being self-reliant and not dependent on the government. And I think those are good things, and those are the values that I will fight for, and those are the people that I will fight for, and I hope to earn your vote.
Hi, I'm Chris Trickle, and I am running for re-election for, what's this now? Oh, there we go, thank you. Running for re-election to the state senate, and much for the same reasons as last year. I love this country, I love this state. I think Idaho is one of the best states in the country, if not the best state in the country. Born and raised here in Idaho, retired out of the United States Marine Corps. I served both in Iraq and Afghanistan as a infantryman. Came back to Idaho, and unfortunately, Idaho was not the Idaho I left when I was a small child. And it used to be to where Idaho was a very safe place, a very quiet place. Neighbors knew each other. Everybody helped with each other out. And it was a great place to be. And it still is, and that's why we have so many people coming to this state. But what we've seen over the years, and part of the reason why I'm running for re-election, is a lot of those in government have gotten in there to be self-serving and not serving of the people themselves. We see this with our education system as the children suffer, especially here in Caldwell, with low performance rates. We see the poverty level increase here in the state of Idaho. It becomes more difficult to pass laws to help individuals that are hurting with property tax. For example, Idaho was hurting for property tax and people claiming for it since 2007, and we finally passed 292 last year. That's a long time to be trying to help people. There's a lot of issues in state government right now that need to be worked out. And the problem is you have a lot of organizations that aren't for the people. They're for themselves and their bottom dollar is what it's come to. And government's become a business for those individuals. And we need more individuals inside that are willing to tell them to back off, stay back. My focus is on those that elected me into office, not big money, not big corporations. Thank you.
So, at this time, I think what we would like to do is ask those that have stayed if they want to do some more meet and greet and ask direct questions. Then we want to allow time for that, but we will end the live feed and then continue the conversation afterward. And again, I just want to say on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, thank you so much for showing up tonight and being present, even though we didn't have a great big platform for you tonight. Hopefully we will in the future. And I thank you, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for co-producing this event with us, as well as our volunteers, my staff at the Chamber, city staff for being here, and our volunteers and ambassadors for the Chamber of Commerce. So thank you all very much, and let's give these candidates a round of applause as well. Thank you.